Welcome to another episode of Let's Talk Quality, the podcast. My name is Hamish Alangaratne, and since 2023, I've been interviewing some of the most talented and well-respected quality leaders in the pharma and biotech industry to learn how they got to where they are now. This season is all about our guests and their journeys. Why they got into science, how they got into quality, their biggest challenges and greatest learns, and the highs and lows along the way. Every week, I'll be bringing you a new guest with the purpose of inspiring the next generation of quality leaders. Welcome to Season 3. I hope you enjoy the show.
Hi all, welcome back to another episode of Let's Talk Quality, the podcast. Today I am very excited to be joined by Nolan Polson. Nolan is the Vice President of Quality Assurance and Product Quality for Iovance Biotherapeutics. He's been there for 10 months and joined at an extremely exciting time for the organization. He's got a great background within biologics and cell therapy, was heavily involved with Juno, Celgene, and BMS, the commercialization for Abecma and Brianze. And he's a great leader of people. So very excited to have him on the show. For anyone that is interested in learning about general quality leadership and the evolution of quality, but also the transition from going from a clinical quality to commercial, this is the episode to watch. So let's get into it. Nolan, good morning. Welcome to Let's Talk Quality, the podcast. This has been long-standing in the waiting. We've been talking about it for some time, so I'm honoured to have you on.
Well, definitely happy to be here. So glad we have chatted about it quite a while. So glad to finally do it. So my name is Nolan Polson. So I am currently the Vice President of Quality Assurance and Product Quality at Iovance Biotherapeutics. Been there about 10 months. And so currently we're the only approved TIL therapy on the market to support melanoma patients. So really the solid tumor space, we've kind of cracked that space to get into the autologous cell therapy. So it's been great working there. A lot of exciting times for us as we're going through the launch phases in the US and soon to be approvals. So.
Well, look, good to have you on. There's a lot to get through, but I think let's start with how it all started for you. I guess let's go right back to the beginning. How did you initially get into science?
Oh man, I think back in my early days when I was a teenager, I really loved chemistry, loved science, loved the detail of it, and really trying to understand a little bit more about life sciences, the biologics, the body, all these different things. So that's kind of what drove me into it. And then when I went into college, ended up taking a lot of different courses, and I really loved the biochemistry type courses where you could apply the science as it applies to biology, right? And so how do you mix the two, and how do you assure that you're doing things for the right reasons, but also for the right benefit for certain things, right? Not just to study something just because it's there, but to study something and to understand how it can impact ourselves and our humanity. So that's what I like to do.
So when was your first actual role in quality, and how did that happen?
So it's interesting. So when I went to, so I went to undergraduate, went and got a degree in biochemistry, and then I went and got a PhD in analytical chemistry or bioanalytical type chemistry.
Yeah.
And I originally started doing lab on a chip type stuff. And so I thought for sure, I started out in kind of an R&D environment doing assay development and things like that. It was interesting when I transitioned from that R&D role into a quality operations role, and this is in medical diagnostics. I remember thinking, okay, I have in the R&D space, one problem to solve in 3 months, right? And then when I switched into operations, it suddenly became you now have 30 problems to solve in about 2 weeks, and so it was a very different cadence, but I really enjoyed it. So the foundations of kind of that quality piece started there in the medical diagnostic field. And then transitioned when I moved to Amgen, where I became basically what was known as a product quality lead there. So I had the opportunity to go into QC or in this global role where you could kind of see a little bit of everything. And that's kind of where my foundation in terms of my core, experience, background, and kind of how I approach problems really came from those core years at Amgen, to be quite honest.
And was that Colorado?
That was in Colorado.
Yeah.
So I was there for about 10 years,
Yeah.
worked in the product quality organization, worked on biologics programs. And really, I think for me, it was the foundation of knowing and understanding what was in module 3 and really the foundational elements there.
Mm.
And then also, I think the benefit is that we were able to go through and really use science to have the conversation. And it was one of those things where as we approached the regulatory agencies or during inspections or during response to questions during filings, it was more of a collaboration to say, you know what, we're just scientists talking to each other. Let's figure this out. And how do we work together?
Yeah.
Whereas I've seen other companies and other organizations, have this, the regulatory agency and the inspectors are, gods on Mount Olympus. You don't question them. You don't talk to them.
Yeah.
You just kind of bow down and say, okay, we'll do it. And it was that mindset from an Amgen perspective that really kind of drove my foundational roots to say, you know what, let's talk through this. Let's build the science. We know what good science looks like. How do we, approach that with the agency? So.
I mean, there's obviously something to be said about starting your career in big pharma or big biotech. You probably learn a lot about the building blocks around quality, obviously, but also processes, structure, people, collaboration. There's so many good habits that you probably learned in those early days. Do you think that's fair to say in terms of like people starting their career in big pharma versus maybe?
No, I think it gives you a vision of what good looks like, and I think, and I've been in a few different big pharmas, right? And I think the thing that I loved about Amgen, it was very science based, it was very technical, and so it was very adaptable, right? We were bringing all of ourselves to the table, everything that you could do. We were learning a lot, and really driving the science, and excited about that. And that's where I think knowing what good looks like in terms of mature systems and quality systems and approaches and justification of specs and stability, comparability, like all those different things wrapped up into one allowed me to go through and say, okay, are we doing what we need to in different areas or different companies that I've worked at, or where can we improve? How can we build something? We've got something good. How do we make it great? How do we continue to evolve and push for that? And so that's what I've tried to do. Based on those experiences that I've seen collectively throughout my career. So,
yeah. So, and so that was in Colorado. Where did you grow up?
I actually grew up in Colorado.
Did you?
So
okay.
It was interesting. So I grew up in Castle Rock, so just south of Denver. It's about 30 miles south. And my family's been there for probably 45 years, something like 46 years.
Okay.
And so I love the area, love the mountains. I mean, where we grew up, I kind of look at it like within 30 minutes, I could be up in downtown Denver to go see the city, or within 30 minutes, I could be out in the middle of the mountains and just be where no one was. So I really enjoyed that. And so I kind of felt very fortunate when I came out of graduate school, was looking, really trying to find a position, and got involved with the Colorado Bioscience Association. You're going to laugh. The first position that I ever got was a company called BioStar, and I'd never even applied for a position there. So I had applied for one position at one person or one company. I don't even know the company, but this guy knew this other woman named Rachel Ostroff, who was there at BioStar, and says, "Hey, I've got this guy. Could you use him?" Right. And so she called me. We went through the interview process. And anyways, I got hired. And so it was just one of those things where everything came together, and I was very fortunate to work. So where I lived was about an hour north of where I grew up in Colorado.
Yeah. Wow. Who knows where you would be if not for that little exchange.
I know.
It's crazy. Yeah. No, Denver, I was in Denver. I went to Denver about 5-6 years ago on a company trip. It's great. Yeah. Downtown Denver, great town, great city. And we did trip up to the Rockies and did a bit of whitewater rafting and some horse riding. Went to see the Rockies play. That was good. They're playing the Padres.
That's good. No, the course field's a great place to be. So for sure.
Yeah. So you did 10 years at Amgen, and then why did you move on, and where did you go to after that?
So they were shutting down the site and kind of consolidating things, and basically, the options were you could move, location A, B, or C, and I didn't really feel like any of those were working for me, and kind of took door number 3, and that's where I was looking outside to say, okay, what's next in my career? I had a very stable position with my family. I had 4 kids there in Colorado. I mean, it was a great opportunity for a younger family. And then, we basically looked to see what else was there. And that's when I ended up joining J&J. And so we moved across country from Colorado to Pennsylvania. And I joined Janssen, so the biopharmaceutical arm of J&J, basically within their quality organization. And then after about 6 months, quickly transitioned into a CMC leadership type role.
Okay.
Basically to support development. We looked at radiopharmaceuticals. We were looking at monoclonal antibodies, and just had a really good time. It was great being a CMC lead. You could see everything, the full development, and bringing stuff through for phase 1, first in human, all the way up through validation, phase 3, and commercialization, enabling activities. So it was good.
Yeah. And was that your first sort of real leadership position?
I was at Amgen. I was on the leadership role within the product quality organization. So I had other PQLs reporting to me and working on different programs, which is great. This was a different role. I'd say that product quality lead role really set the stage to where you could understand a little bit of everything around product development. So analytical development, process development, manufacturing, QC, QA, as well as regulatory. And so it was a natural transition to go from that role into this CMC lead type role. And so I really loved it. I worked there for about 3.5 years and really just enjoyed doing drug development and just having great teams and leading teams and trying to drive that. So.
Do you think that experience across drug development CMC, did that stand you in a better stead as you sort of progressed and grew your career after that?
I think it has. I mean, to be honest, because then you can go through and truly understand what it takes for different departments. You can kind of put yourself in some way, right? Not that I've been at the bench, but you can say, okay, what does it take to do X, Y, Z? Support drug development. What does a robust process look like? How do you build a control strategy? Like what does good look like for methods, then valid rates, the, specifications, all that kind of stuff. And so that was really helpful and foundational. And I'd say it really formed kind of a lot of the things that I'm doing and a lot of the things that I really push for as I've gone past Janssen, past J&J, when I joined Juno, which was then by Celgene, which is then bought by BMS. And then I've taken that post that as well through GSK, and then also now here at Iovance. So it's been good.
Yeah. So let's talk about that. So then what year did you join Juno?
It was in 2019. So this is a time where I was enjoying my life really a lot at J&J, had no aspirations, and a recruiter had called actually and said, hey, there's this cell therapy company. They've got Breyanzi that's on the brink of commercialization. They've got a Abecma that's coming from Celgene. Like, we want you to come in and build this product quality organization. And so I came in, and basically we started out with 2 individuals, and we built it up to about 45. And that included product quality leads, both within the commercial space, clinical space, as well as a stability organization, as well as an AS&T type organization. So really drove a lot of the activities, and through the course of about 3.5 years, basically touched every single bit of development and filing and interaction with the agency for both Breyanzi and Abecma to support that. So it was a great experience, a lot of work, a lot of hard hours, long hours, but great team that we built there. And, I still interact with that team and have a lot.
It was also right back in the middle of COVID, so you then you throw that into the mix and everything changed. I mean, I'm guessing that probably was that when you look back at it, did you learn a lot about yourself as a leader in that time, or did you learn much? Did you feel you accelerated, or were you already kind of a good leader as you were going into that role? Do you felt?
I personally felt like I was doing good. Obviously, there's things to learn, but I remember so at the time, I was actually temporarily living up in Seattle and then started to go back. So I was relocated there for about 4 or 5 months. And I remember being up there when COVID hit, and we had gone out as a team, and, we were all just joking, having a good time after dinner. And we're walking by and we're like, hey, there's the building where the COVID person up in Seattle was. Right. And little did we know that would be the last time I'd visit there. Because of so much stuff that went on. And at that point, I was theoretically going to move my family up there. And then by the time I had looked at that post-COVID, half of my team was in Summit, New Jersey, half of us was in Seattle. And so for the sake of the family, we just stayed where we were. But it was definitely interesting just from a leadership perspective, trying to make sure that you're building and managing a team remotely. I'd had some experience with that, but that personal touch was, it's missing a little bit, but making sure that people know and understand, hey, I'm here for you, even though I'm physically not in the same room or whatever else, but let me know what I can do to help. So,
no, it's crazy thinking that was now five years ago. So what in that time then? So let's, I guess, go into the Beckman Brianzi story, and I don't want to go too much into the detail of it, but I suppose building your organization, going from a 2 people to 45 and beyond, whilst getting two first-in-class products out into the market. There's tons of lessons, I'm sure, but if you had to, I guess, narrow it down to sort of the most impactful lessons that you learned during that time around building teams, around building processes, are there any that come to mind?
I think just like from a team building perspective, I'd say making sure that you're building the right team, you've got the right people in place, and you're empowering them, right? And I've seen situations before where people say they're empowered, but they're truly not. And I think my philosophy is I want to bring in the people that are technically sound, they're competent, and know what they can do, and they can help make decisions. And I'm not going to be the one that's going to go through and micromanage and say, I'm going to question everything you do. I trust what you do. I may ask you questions, which sometimes, people say, man, you ask a lot of questions, but it's okay. But really trying to make sure that you build the right teams. I'd known some folks, a guy named Ken Riker from Amgen. That's when I first met Adam Fung as well, who works for me now. I hired him at Juno, and he liked me enough to come back, and now he works for me at Iovance. So, but it's there's key leadership positions, and the individuals that were there, Shivante Chinna and Katie Megan, who are still there at BMS, they were rock stars. They really went through and helped build the team, helped form the vision, and we had a really good, strong leadership team. So it's just not me being a leader, but it's how do we synergize between all of us to make sure that we can bring out the best in all of us and drive improvements to the systems, the process, the leadership, and everything else together. So that's kind of the way I look at it.
Yeah.
And then from a process perspective, I think we had to build, because Juno was a very kind of young, not necessarily immature, but basically a young organization that was going through first commercialization. They were being bought by Celgene. There's a lot of transition there. And then Celgene was then bought by BMS. So there was a lot of transition of what does it look like, but we were really trying to build, the foundational elements that were required to support, a commercial organization. And that's what we tried to implement there at Juno. And then we took our best practices from what we had at Juno and Celgene to merge those into a cell therapy type approach. And then certainly BMS came in and modified some things there as well. So, yeah.
And how about in that clinical, when you're, I guess, go back to building the team, because you are going from a clinical to a commercial setting. That's what you're aspiring to do, and the mindset of going from clinical to commercial is vastly different. When you are building for commercial, your first commercial product, and you're hiring people, what are you looking for in terms of their experience and their traits? Are there any specific sort of characteristics or leadership traits even that you really want to see when you're interviewing these people, to make sure that that they've got what it takes to go into that world when the time comes?
No, it's an interesting question, right? I think for me, a lot of the things that I look for are basically leadership type qualities, right? Do they know what good looks like? Have they done it before, and they know where that vision is moving forward? I think that helps out a ton, right? Because if I can come in and hire someone and say, hey, here's the vision I have, And if they have a shared vision or they know where to go, and I can be confident, you know what, I know where you're going. That's great. It empowers that person to come in, take ownership, be assertive, and move forward. It's much, much easier to have someone like that on your team than the alternative to say, okay, yes, you may be capable, but there's no vision. I've got to really lay out every single step of the way. And then it becomes, okay, we've got two people doing one person's job. How do we make sure we do, more than that to expand upon it and really improve upon that? So I'd say, leadership attributes, assertiveness, technical acumen. I kind of, I love the book, The Ideal Team Player, where it talks about hungry, humble, and smart. And hungry being you want to learn, you're wanting to improve. Smart, just someone that actually knows what they're talking about and is very technically sound. And then humble, right? Enough to understand, hey, I may not know everything. I need to improve. What can I learn from this? And if you're missing any one of those elements, then it throws everything out of whack.
Right.
So.
Yeah. And on the, I guess, the smart element then, do you in the cell therapy space, are you looking for direct cell therapy experience? Obviously, finding people with, we've probably spoken about this before, but finding people with commercial cell therapy, there's few and far between. But
and it is few and far between. And I would say, when I look at kind of my transition was going from biologics into that cell and gene therapy space.
Yeah,
and I think that was a good pathway, simply because, the biologics, you're dealing with a lot of different things, different degradation pathways, different unique aspects. Obviously it goes up a level when you start looking at live cells and all the degradation pathways and issues and challenges and phenotypes and other things. But that biologics foundation is a tremendous help. And I've seen people that come in with biologics and they do really well. And I've seen some people that come in with like a small molecule mentality or outside the industry. And depending on the scope of what we're asking them to do, they may excel. And then there's other times where it's a challenge because they see things as, oh, it's my small molecule eyes. How do we do this? And it's very, very different. So,
it's a bit of you're interviewing people and you don't really know. You can test them on certain attributes and mindset and how they would react in certain scenarios, I guess. But until you see them in the role, it's very difficult to assess how they're going to respond. So in such a gray area.
And I think the other thing too is just to add to that is if you look at what you're also what is the current environment like, right? So what are the people that you're having to deal with? What kind of strong players are they going to be passive in a meeting, or are they going to be assertive and be able to stand up and say, hey, this is what my opinion is? May not be popular based on the group think that's in that meeting, but it may be necessary, right? And making sure that you've got the right people that can stand up in those situations and just say, you know what, I'm going to ask the question anyways. You may not like it, or it may be challenging, but it's okay, right? We're all trying to get this together. It's not personal. It's business. Let's figure this out. So
yeah, exactly. So just to cap off the time at Juno, Celgene, BMS, obviously incredibly important time of your career. Like when you look back at that now, how do you sort of surmise that whole part of your journey?
To be honest, I loved it, right? It was a great time. It was foundational. We were into the science. We were really trying to drive improvements and really challenging the agencies on different things. And some of it we won, some of it we didn't. And we're trying to, work through it. But it was a great experience. I had great leaders there. Georgetta Pasquale was the one that hired me on. And she was a great leader, great example of what that excitement and vision is there as well. And so it was definitely interesting to kind of see the transition going from Juno to Celgene to BMS, going from more of a biotech to a big pharma. And so there was a little bit more bureaucracy, that kind of stuff. So it was definitely a fun time. So
excellent. So then you moved to GSK from BMS.
I did. So I was looking to see how my original mindset was, okay, I've gotten biologic experience, I've got cell and gene therapy experience. What else can I apply for this? And there was a position that opened up that I was literally just kind of, not actively, but just kind of passively looking around, and this thing popped up on LinkedIn. And I thought, okay, if I was going to ever write a position. This is probably nearly as close as what
Really?
it would be. And basically, it was a strategic product quality type organization there that was being built, right? So
Yeah.
from the ground up, didn't have it before, trying to build that up. And the scope of that would basically be covering small molecules, biologics, and cell and gene therapy. And so my thought, okay, I've done two of
Done
these
it all.
things. I can continue to push and drive, which was great. And so it was an interesting transition working from BMS to GSK. Very different philosophies occasionally. But the challenge that I saw, and that's ultimately where I ended up here, is that after about 8 or 12 months, they basically shut down all their cell and gene therapy space. So
Yeah.
it was kind of like the company was dipping their big toe in the deep end of a pool rather than doing a cannonball in and say, we're all in, let's go for it.
Right. Yeah.
Which is okay, right? And there's financial reasons and business reasons, all that kind of stuff. So it was a good time, but then it was a scenario kind of for me of soul searching to figure out what do I want to do. Built the team there up from basically inception up to about 24 product quality leads, supporting small molecule biologics and then the cell and gene therapy, which eventually went away. So just trying to understand like where do I want to go? What do I want to do?
Yeah.
And I think as I reflected on my career, I really loved the power of autologous cell therapy and what it can do for patients. You're talking, how does this cure patients versus just simply treat them chronically for the rest of their life?
Yeah.
And that's really what drove me to say, what else could I do in that space? And that ultimately led me to Iovance.
So Iovance, you've now been there for 10 months, did you say?
About 10 months, yeah.
Coming up to a year. How do you sort of summarize your first 10 months in the role?
It's been a lot of fun. I mean, it's been eye-opening. I mean, the interesting, unique things that I've seen is coming into it. So they had gotten approval of their MTAGV drug product in February of last year. And so I joined in early August of last year. So it's one of those things where you're trying to come up to speed on what was done during development, what was done during characterization, what were the interactions with the agency. So it was obviously there still continues to be a lot of catch up and trying to figure out what are we doing, how are we doing this, how do we make sure everything's aligned, and then just kind of understanding the framework of what the FDA was questioning about. So it has been a learning curve just to say, okay, let's make sure we're up to speed on not only what we have, but how do we drive the strategy to improve the process, interact with the agency, interact with inspectors or anything else to say, does this make sense and how can we continue to improve? And then certainly working with the development teams and MSAT and manufacturing and regulatory, like how do we drive improvements and enhancements? So some of the things that I've seen we could do elsewhere, how do we incorporate some of those elements here at Iovance as well? So.
Well, when you go from that clinical to commercial setting, I know we've spoken about it before, but how does the organization have to adapt when they do, like overnight that change happens from a quality organization perspective?
Yeah, I'd say, yeah, and I would just say we have to have a different mindset, right? So clinical, in many cases, you're looking at, how do you build minimum requirements, risk-based requirements, right? The level of inspection is potentially lower, but you're not cutting corners. You're still managing GMP, but in a clinical setting, to be quite honest, right? And so in that commercial space, that's where you have to have a little bit more maturity in your infrastructure, all the systems in place, everything around it. And I think that's where the last 10 months, I'll come in and I'll say, okay, this is a little bit broken. We need clarity here. What do we need to do here? How do we, improve this? How do we align this? Where are I'm an attention to detail aficionado. So it basically, if you start seeing one thing here, how, with our internal documentation as well as our internal regulatory filing commitments, are those all aligned? And if there's anything that's misconceived, do we need to clarify it, strengthen it, adjust it, shift it? Those are the kind of things that we're constantly doing. But really, as I'm trying to build up my team now, and we've hired quite a bit, but just trying to make sure we have the people that are capable, but also have that commercial mindset of what good looks like. And so then we can go through and say, okay, you know where it's at, let's do this. And we're just starting to go through the first annual product quality review. So just a lot of things that in the clinical setting you don't see.
Yeah.
But we're trying to manage that appropriately in that commercial setting. So data trending, method trending, more formality in some of these things and systems. So it's good.
I've spoken to a few people about, and a lot of this season, I want to sort of touch on the role of AI and digital technologies and how that is, I suppose, accelerating the industry. I've mentioned a few times, but I think the life sciences, pharma, biotech sectors are probably a bit behind in terms of other industries when it comes to adopting digital transformation and new technologies.
Yeah.
Probably because of sort of hesitancy to change and be first movers in the space. But when you look back at sort of 5-10 years ago versus maybe where we are now, where we're going in the next 5 years, what role do you think all of that will play in how quality is performed, or how the industry evolves?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think for me, the huge benefit, and if you look at like what is quality doing from a oversight of manufacturing, oversight of control strategy, like there's an embedded way where you could almost go through and say, could you develop an AI algorithm to basically do most of that? And then it's a review by exception kind of approach. So you can go through and say, instead of checking every single, bits and pieces, if it's electronically integrated and if there's an AI algorithm that can go through and say, hey, if this looks good, you can build in your almost like your CPV limits, your control limits. Like you can go through and say, is there anything that's atypical here? If the answer is no, it's right down the middle and everything looks great, then it becomes much easier. Then you say, okay, we are confident that we can go through and make things easier from that end, right? I think the other piece, and this isn't necessarily within quality, but I think within AI and the development and the control strategy piece, looking at kind of this multifactorial analysis. So it's more of a digital footprint to say, okay, what is that? What do those items look like? And if you have, one thing small tweak over here and it adjusts over here, what does that look like? So you have almost a 3-dimensional control space versus just a 2D control space that you might have had previously. So
right, yeah,
lots of stuff, lots of exciting things to do, but it does take a lot of the digital integration. There's a lot of things that we're doing now to try to improve that pace and that system, and trying to automate things and make things more manageable to facilitate and enable those type of things. So it's obviously a work in progress. So
do you think it will eliminate certain tasks that are performed by people over time? I mean, it is in many industries. It'll be interesting, but it's such a people industry, the biotech space, because of the science and the mind that you need. But
and it's interesting because some of the other companies I've worked at, they've had different initiatives, and that question came up. And what is this going to mean? And are we going to be putting people out of the job? And I think for me, it's not necessarily that we would be putting people out of the job. They may be doing part of that job that could be automated in those systems. The real question is, does that mean that you just simply get rid of those individuals, or do you simply say, hey, as you recycle and adjust and learn, right, there's a core understanding that's needed, but what other development for those staff could occur, right? So that's how I look at it. Like it's a constantly learning,
upskilling people.
Yeah. And that's what I'm a big advocate for that within my team, just to say, what can I do to help you develop? If it's beyond my team, that's great. Let me figure out what you can do, what I can do to help you in that space, rather than self-serving to say, what can you do to improve that helps me out? It's flipped to say, well, what can I do to help you out in your career?
Yeah.
My goal and aspiration is not to have you, as my subordinate, be here for the next 10 years because you make my life look easy, right? The hope is that they'll continue to expand, grow, and move on. So.
Well, let's talk about that then. Just on that sort of topic around leadership and succession. Like if you're hiring your successor, for example, in the future, what are you looking for in terms of the traits, the leadership traits for your for someone to take on your role in the future?
Yeah. Oh man, that's a good question. Obviously, I mean, for me, if I were to describe someone that I would love to replace me, someone that's technically sound, that can understand the process, the analytics, um, you know, has a keen understanding of what good looks like from a regulatory perspective. So you can drive those strategies, improvements there. And then also making sure that there's some foundational elements with respect to the quality systems, the processes, the investigations, like all of those different things that have to come into play. May not necessarily mean that you have to be an expert at every single one of those, but there should be some visibility and touch points to understand where those things are. So
Yeah.
um,
So that, I mean, going back to your smart,
hungry, humble,
humility.
and smart. Yeah.
Exactly, hungry and smart. Yeah, I guess that sort of summarizes, the type
Yeah.
of person that you want, in a nutshell. I guess that's a good philosophy to go by.
Yeah.
So
You want someone
so
that's assertive, that can drive change,
yeah,
be a change leader, and be
yeah.
a leader in the organization. So yeah.
So we probably talk about this for a while, but just to, I guess, cap things off. Looking ahead, how do you assess the let's talk about cell therapy, I suppose. How do you assess where the cell therapy, the ATMP space is right now?
Yeah.
Because it's been a tough couple of years. There's all sorts of stuff happening in the FDA. There are political changes. The investment scene has been challenging, to say the least. Where do you see everything?
Yeah, for me, I mean, yes, it is challenging from a business, from a reimbursement, all those kind of things. But for me, I think if you were to go through and ask, what other um, business entity or class of business entities out there has the opportunity to revolutionize healthcare and actually curative in nature versus just treatment, to me, I still very feel very strongly around the autologous cell therapy space, or just anything that we can continue to do to drive improvements. I know there's a lot of initiatives out there to go beyond cancer. I know there's a lot of activities out there and initiatives. It is changing, right? The business, just in terms of the finance and everything else. But I'm still very highly vested in it. I think it's a great therapy. I think it's a huge impact on many, many different lives of people. So
Yeah, good. Well, look, Nolan, it's been a great conversation. I've really enjoyed it. I usually throw some quick fire questions just to cap off the discussion. So very, very briefly, first question is around your values, that you hold true to yourself. What are the three most important values that you live and die by?
Oh man, I'd say for me, the values that I have are to my family, to my religion or creator, and then just to myself, making sure that I'm true to myself in terms of who I am and what I'm trying to do. And you have to, you're the person that has to live with that little voice in your head. Like, are you doing what you need to do, or are you doing something that's a little bit shady? And for me, it's the foundational element is being honest and integrity in all things. Right? I was told in my first job that I was too honest, and this was by the compliance guy, and I thought that's a little weird that I was too honest, but I hold it as a a foundational value.
Yeah. Right. It's almost one of those ones when someone asks you in an interview, "What are your weaknesses?" and someone says, "I'm too honest."
Yeah.
Come on, that's not a weakness.
or too detailed oriented, right?
Yeah. I focus too much on the people.
Yeah.
Great. So, second question: who's been the biggest inspiration in your life, either personally or professionally?
Oh man. I'd say, oh geez, there's been numerous individuals. From a career perspective, I'd say Tony Myers-Sluice, who's the head of QA or quality at AstraZeneca, and he was foundational at Amgen, and really brought that product quality organization to bear. And I'd say that foundational element and seeing how he interacted with the agencies and bringing on people into our team from, FDA or from Health Canada or others, like you could get to the point where you actually knew what they were thinking about, and it was foundational. So I'd say that's probably one of the key foundational elements in my life. So
I'm trying to get him on the podcast, Tony.
You should, yeah.
He's been dodging me for a while.
Maybe you post this and maybe he'll come on.
I'll send him this and say, look, I've had multiple people. Now Nolan said it. No, he's a good guy. Final question then. What one piece of advice would you give to aspiring quality leaders?
Yeah. It's a good question. I actually go and present to different grad classes. So I've done it at ASU. I did it at UPenn recently. And my advice to them or anybody else starting out their career is just embrace the change, right? And embrace what the opportunities that you have. And if people were to go through and say, Nolan, 25 years ago when you were a PhD student and you just came out with, and thinking that microfluidics is going to change the world and everybody's going to throw all their big equipment away and throw billions of dollars away to go micro. I thought never did I imagine that I would be in the career in the position where I'm at now. And I kind of look at that as seeing the opportunities. They may be slightly different than what you think. And I've talked with a lot of people that are like, oh, I've only done this in my PhD graduate student and this is all I want to do. Right. Embrace the change and adapt and learn and grow. And I'd say, when I start looking at where I've been in different companies and organizations, all those little bits and pieces along their career help build who you are. And it's been a tremendous opportunity, tremendous road for me. I don't think I would have ever, figured out where I would end up being, but it's been very blessed by that.
That's brilliant.
Embrace the change. Yeah.
Embrace the change. I love it. Well, Nolan, thanks so much for coming on the show. I know you're extremely busy, so I appreciate your time. Glad to get this done at long last. We've known each other for some time, so it's good to chew the fat.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. This is
well, look, enjoyed it. Good to talk to you, and thanks again.
All right, thanks, Samesh. Appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to today's show. I hope that you got value from it, whether you're starting your career in quality or if you're at the top of your field. Today's episode was brought to you by RX Group. I'm the founder of RX Group. We are a pharma and biotech recruitment organization focusing purely on quality assurance. We recruit consultants and senior level permanent quality professionals into the pharma and biotech industry. If we can support you, whether that be in a hiring capacity or if you yourself are looking for work, please get in touch with me on LinkedIn, visit our LinkedIn page where you can subscribe to the podcast, and visit our website, www.rx-group.io, to find out more about us. See you soon.